December 15th arrived in Boston the way it always did, without mercy. The first snow of the season fell soft and silent against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse on the 40th floor, each flake a small white lie about gentleness, about peace, about how the world could be beautiful, even when it was killing you from the inside out. James Coleman. Brennan stood at that window with his hands shoved deep in the pockets of his $1,000 slacks, watching the city disappear beneath the white. Behind him in the bedroom, with the door cracked open just enough, his daughter slept. 5 years old, small for her age, dark hair splayed across a pillow that cost more than most people spent on rent. She clutched a stuffed bear so worn the seams had split in 3 places, cotton guts held in by stitches he'd sewn himself at 2 in the morning because Sophie had cried until he fixed it. The bear had been her mother's. 2 years. 730 days since the night Lisa's car skidded on black ice during the season's first snow, since the call came at 11:47 p.m. while he was still at the office reviewing contracts that didn't matter, since he'd stood in a hospital corridor that smelled like disinfectant and defeat and learned that some mistakes you don't get to fix. The doctors used words like massive trauma and did everything we could, but all Cole heard was the truth. Underneath, he'd sent his wife out into a storm because a meeting with partners in New York couldn't wait, because the acquisition deal was on a deadline, because he'd convinced her, that success meant never saying no to opportunity. Lisa had said yes because she always did, because she believed in him even when he didn't deserve it. The snow kept falling. Behind him, bed sheets rustled. Small feet hit the hardwood floor, padding soft toward where he stood. Cole didn't turn around. He felt her presence the way you feel a limb that's gone numb starting to wake up, familiar and foreign and faintly painful. Sophie pressed herself against his leg, her cheek warm through the fabric of his slacks. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. The city below was a grid of lights going dark, building by building, as midnight crept closer. Somewhere down there, people were living lives that made sense. Somewhere down there, fathers knew how to be what their daughters needed. Her voice came small and sleepy. "Daddy, why does snow make you sad?" Cole's throat closed. He reached down, lifted her up, even though his back protested, even though she was getting too big for this. She wrapped her arms around his neck, and he held her there, suspended between the window and the room, between the past and whatever came next. "Snow's just snow, baby. I'm not sad." Sophie pulled back enough to look at him with eyes too knowing for 5 years old. Lisa's eyes, the same dark brown that had once looked at him across a college library and decided he was worth the gamble. "You're always sad when it snows." He couldn't lie to her. Couldn't find the words to explain that grief didn't have an on-off switch, that sometimes it lived in your chest like a second heart beating out of rhythm, that snow would probably make him sad for the rest of his life because the last thing he'd said to Lisa was "Drive careful, I love you," and he'd been distracted even saying that, eyes on his laptop screen, not on her face. "It's late. You should be asleep." "I had a dream about Mommy." Cole's arms tightened around her involuntarily. Sophie didn't fight it. She laid her head on his shoulder, her breath warm against his neck. She was singing, the song about the mockingbird. "Hush, little baby, don't say a word." "That one." Sophie's voice had gone drowsy again. "She said I should tell you it's okay to stop being sad all the time." Something cracked in Cole's chest. He pressed his lips to the top of her head, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo, the smell of childhood that wouldn't last, that was already slipping away faster than he could hold on to it. "Your mom was smart. Are you going to stop being sad?" "I'm going to try." It was the best he could offer, the most honest thing he'd said in months. Sophie seemed to accept it, her body going heavy in his arms as sleep reclaimed her. Cole carried her back to bed, tucked the worn bear under her arm, pulled the comforter up to her chin. He stood there for longer than necessary, watching her breathe, trying to memorize the moment, because he'd learned the hard way that everything could disappear in an instant. The clock on her nightstand read 12:17 a.m. December 16th now. The snow outside had thickened into a proper storm. Cole left her door cracked open the way she liked it, walked back through the penthouse that suddenly felt too big, too empty, too much like a monument to ambition that had cost him everything that mattered. 36 years old. CEO of Brennan Technologies, a company his grandfather had started in a garage and he'd grown into a 9-figure enterprise. Corner office in downtown Boston, penthouse in Back Bay, a Rolex that cost more than his first car, a daughter who asked why he was always sad. He poured himself 2 fingers of scotch he wouldn't drink, stood at the living room window watching the city vanish, and wondered if this was all there was. Success without joy, achievement without purpose. A future that looked exactly like the past, stretching forward until Sophie grew up and moved away, and he died alone in a house built for a family that no longer existed. The scotch sat untouched until the ice melted. At 5:43 a.m., Sophie's scream shattered the silence. Cole was moving before conscious thought caught up racing down the hallway in bare feet and the t-shirt he'd fallen asleep in on the couch. He hit her doorframe hard enough to bruise his shoulder flipped on the light. Sophie sat upright in bed, her face flushed crimson, her small chest heaving with breath that came too fast. Sweat plastered her hair to her forehead. Her eyes were glassy, unfocused. "Baby." Cole was at her side in 2 strides, hand on her forehead. Heat radiated from her skin like a furnace. "Baby, what hurts?" "Everything." The word came out small and broken. "Daddy, everything hurts." His training kicked in, the training that came from 2 years of single parenting from WebMD at 3 a.m. from the pediatrician's number saved in his favorites. He grabbed the thermometer from her nightstand drawer, held it to her temple while his heart tried to punch through his ribs. 104.2. Okay, we're going to the hospital." "I don't want to go." "I know, sweetheart. I know, but we have to." He grabbed the clothes she'd left on her floor, dressed her while she whimpered, wrapped her in her winter coat that was too thin, made a mental note to buy a better one. If they survived this, if this wasn't something terrible, if he hadn't failed her the way he'd failed Lisa by not noticing soon enough, not protecting her well enough. The drive to Massachusetts General took 12 minutes through pre-dawn streets slick with new snow. Sophie alternated between shivering and burning against her car seat. Cole spoke to her the whole way, a running stream of words he hoped sounded calm, hoped sounded like a father who had everything under control instead of a man barely holding himself together with spit and fear. The emergency room at 6 a.m. on a Thursday in December was a portrait of human suffering rendered in fluorescent lighting and plastic chairs. Cole carried Sophie through the automatic doors, hit the reception desk at a near run. The woman behind the plexiglass looked up with the expression of someone who'd seen it all and wasn't impressed. "My daughter, fever 104.2, started less than an hour ago." The woman's fingers flew across a keyboard. Name, Sophie Brennan, 5 years old, no known allergies, no pre-existing conditions. Insurance. Cole rattled off the information while Sophie's head lolled against his shoulder. Another nurse appeared with a wheelchair, and suddenly people were moving, guiding them through doors marked "Authorized Personnel Only" into a triage bay that smelled like antiseptic and the particular desperation of emergency medicine. They took her temperature again, 104.6. "We need to get this down." The triage nurse was in her 50s, efficient movements that spoke of decades doing this. "I'm going to start an IV, give her some fluids and fever reducer." Sophie whimpered when the needle went in. Cole held her hand, whispered promises he had no authority to make. "You're okay. You're safe. Daddy's here. Nothing bad will happen," while the nurse worked with practiced speed. "Doctor will be in shortly. Try to keep her calm." Then they were alone in a bay separated from the chaos beyond by nothing but a thin curtain. Cole sat on the edge of the examination table, Sophie curled in his lap despite being too big for it, despite his legs going numb. He held her and felt completely, utterly helpless in a way that money and power and all his carefully constructed success couldn't fix. Time became elastic. Minutes stretched into hours. Sophie drifted in and out of fitful sleep. Cole's arms ached, but he didn't move, didn't risk disturbing her, didn't do anything except exist as a warm body for his daughter to lean against while medicine dripped into her veins and strangers in scrubs rushed past their curtain to deal with catastrophes he couldn't see. Footsteps approached, different from the rushed chaos of the ER, slower, more measured. The curtain pulled back. The woman who stepped through wore scrubs patterned with cartoon elephants that seemed aggressively cheerful against the industrial beige of everything else. Dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. No makeup. Eyes that were red-rimmed like she'd been crying recently but was too professional to let it show. Late 20s, maybe 30. A name badge that read, Maya Hartford, RN, clipped to her pocket. She stopped just inside the curtain, looked at Sophie sleeping restlessly against Cole's chest, and something shifted in her expression. Not pity, something deeper. Recognition, maybe. Like she knew exactly what it felt like to hold on to something precious and be terrified of losing it. "Hi." Her voice came soft, calibrated to not wake the child. "I'm Maya. I'll be Sophie's nurse until the day shift comes on." Cole nodded, not trusting his voice. The IV bag hanging beside them was nearly empty. Maya checked the monitor first, made a note on the tablet she carried, then turned her attention to Sophie. She moved with the kind of careful quiet that came from working with sick children, checking vitals without waking her, adjusting the blanket someone had draped over them both. "Fever's starting to come down. 103 now. Is she going to be okay?" The question came out rougher than intended. Maya's eyes flicked to his face, held there for a moment. Up close, her eyes were an unusual shade amber, almost gold in the harsh lighting. Exhausted eyes. Sad eyes, eyes that had seen things. "The doctor will know more, but kids spike fevers. It's scary, but usually not as serious as it seems. We'll get her stable, run some tests, figure out what's causing it." Sophie stirred her small hand, clutching at Cole's shirt. Her eyelids fluttered but didn't open. She made a sound, half whimper, half sigh. Maya's expression softened further. She pulled over a rolling stool, sat so she was eye level with Sophie. "Hey, sweetheart." Her voice dropped even lower, gentler. "I know you probably don't feel good right now, but you're doing great. So brave." Sophie's eyes opened halfway, unfocused and fever bright. "My head hurts." "I bet it does. The medicine is going to help with that, okay. Just takes a little time to work." Sophie's gaze drifted past Maya to some point in the middle distance. Her lips moved, forming words so quiet Cole almost missed them. "Hush, little baby. Don't say a word." Maya went absolutely still. The color drained from her face. For several seconds she just sat there, frozen, while something complicated happened behind her eyes. Then, without hesitation, without asking permission, she started singing. Her voice was low and untrained but true, carrying the melody with a tenderness that punched straight through Cole's chest. She sang the whole song, all the verses he'd half forgotten about mockingbirds and diamond rings and billy goats and looking glasses, while Sophie's eyes drifted closed again and her breathing evened out into something closer to real sleep than fevered restlessness. When the last note faded, the silence felt heavier somehow, more present. Cole stared at this stranger who'd just sung his daughter to sleep with a song Lisa used to sing, and felt something shift in the careful numbness he'd built around himself. Not breaking, just cracking. A hairline fracture in the armor. "How did you know that song?" Maya's hands were shaking. She clasped them together in her lap, knuckles going white. "My mother used to sing it to me." Her voice had gone rough-edged. "Before she left." "Left. I was 8. Maya stood abruptly, busied herself checking the IV line, even though she'd just checked it. "She walked out one morning and never came back. That was the last song I remember her singing." The words hung between them, sharp and honest in a way that felt almost violent in its intimacy. Two strangers in an ER bay at dawn, connected by nothing except a sick child and a lullaby, and the particular loneliness that came from people who were supposed to stay leaving anyway. Cole didn't know what to say, couldn't find words that didn't sound hollow. So he just held his daughter and watched this nurse with the sad eyes adjust monitors and make notes and do her job while carrying grief that was probably older than his own. The doctor came through 40 minutes later. Young, competent, asked the right questions and ordered the right tests. Strep throat most likely. They'd know for sure in an hour. In the meantime, keep the fever down. Push fluids monitor for any changes. Maya moved in and out, efficient and quiet. She brought juice boxes Sophie wouldn't drink. She adjusted the bed when Sophie finally consented to laying down instead of clinging to Cole. She explained everything in language a 5-year-old could understand without being condescending about it. And every time she looked at Sophie, something in her expression softened into an ache that was almost painful to witness. By 8 a.m. the ER had filled with the morning rush, people who'd put off coming in overnight, people whose crises couldn't wait for their regular doctors to open. The noise level beyond their curtain rose to a dull roar of suffering and bureaucracy. Maya appeared with test results. Strep. We'll get her started on antibiotics. She can go home in a couple hours once we're sure the fever stays down, and she can keep fluids in. Relief hit like a physical force. Cole's shoulders dropped, tension he hadn't realized he was carrying draining away. Sophie was going to be okay. It was just strep, just a bacterial infection, not meningitis, not something terrible, not another person he loved being taken away without warning. Thank you. The words felt inadequate. For everything. The singing it. Thank you. Maya's smile was small and sad and didn't quite reach her eyes. She's a sweet kid. Reminds me of... She stopped, shook her head. Anyway, you're a good dad. She's lucky to have you. Something in how she said it made Cole look at her more carefully. The red-rimmed eyes, the exhaustion that went deeper than a night shift should cause. The way her scrubs hung a little loose like she'd lost weight recently. The absence of a ring on her left hand but a pale line on her finger where one used to be. Long night. Maya laughed a sound without humor. Long year. She left before he could respond, pulled back through the curtain by the tide of other patients, other emergencies, other people's children who needed her steady hands and gentle voice. Sophie slept through most of the next 2 hours. The antibiotics went in, the fever continued its downward trend, and gradually the immediate crisis faded into the dull administrative work of hospital discharge. Cole filled out forms, received instructions for care, was handed a prescription, and told to follow up with Sophie's pediatrician in 3 days. By the time they wheeled Sophie out to the entrance, hospital policy, even though she could walk, the morning had fully arrived. Gray sky, heavy with the promise of more snow. Cold that bit through his coat because he'd left the house in such a rush he'd forgotten gloves, forgotten a scarf, forgotten everything except get my daughter help. He was loading Sophie into the car, adjusting her seatbelt, when he saw Maya again. She stood near the ER entrance, still in her elephant scrubs, arms wrapped around herself against the December wind. No coat, just standing there in the cold, staring at nothing. Cole got Sophie settled, promised her they'd be home soon, then walked back across the lot. You're going to freeze. Maya, startled, turned. Recognition flickered across her face, followed by confusion. Forgot where I parked. I always forget. You're getting off shift. Just did. She looked around the parking lot like it was a maze she couldn't solve. I just needed some air. Up close in natural light, she looked worse than she had in the ER. The exhaustion was bone deep. Her hands trembled, even clasped together. You okay? Why wouldn't I be? The defensive edge in her voice was immediate, instinctive. I'm fine. She was very clearly not fine. Cole knew he should walk away. Should take Sophie home, put her to bed, get back to his life of board meetings and acquisition deals, and pretending he had everything under control. This woman was a stranger. Her problems weren't his responsibility. He had enough weight to carry without adding someone else's, but he kept thinking about how she'd sung to Sophie, how something in her had recognized something in his daughter, how she'd said, "She's lucky to have you," like she knew what it meant to not be that lucky. "Can I buy you breakfast?" As a thank you for taking care of Sophie. Maya's expression cycled through surprise, suspicion, and something that might have been longing before settling on polite refusal. That's not necessary. I was just doing my job. I know, but I'm asking anyway. I should get home. To what? The question came out sharper than intended. Maya flinched. Cole cursed himself internally, started to apologize, but she spoke first. To nothing. I should get home to nothing. Happy now. The bitterness in her voice was fresh, raw. Recent wounds not quite healed. Cole held up his hands in surrender. I'm sorry. That was out of line. You helped my daughter. Let me say thank you properly. Coffee, at least. There's a diner 2 blocks from here that makes decent eggs. Maya looked at him for a long moment. Whatever she saw in his face must have convinced her he wasn't a threat, or maybe she was just too tired to keep fighting. Her shoulders dropped. I can't. I need to. I have things to. She trailed off. They both knew she was lying. 1 coffee. Then I'll leave you alone. Why do you care? I don't know. The honesty surprised him. Maybe because you looked at my daughter like you understood what it meant to need someone. Maybe because I recognize what too many losses in too short a time looks like. Maybe I'm just tired of eating breakfast alone. Something shifted behind her eyes. The defensive walls came down 1/2 inch. I don't have money for a diner. I'm buying. I can't accept charity. It's not charity. It's payment for services rendered. Sophie smiled for the first time in days when you sang to her. That's worth at least pancakes. Maya's laugh was startled genuine. You drive a hard bargain. I'm a CEO. It's what I do. Of course you are. She shook her head, but some of the tension had left her posture. Fine, 1 coffee. But I'm ordering the most expensive thing on the menu. Deal. He drove them both to the diner, Sophie sleeping in her car seat. Maya silent in the passenger seat beside him. She stared out the window at the gray morning, her reflection in the glass showing an expression too complicated to parse. The diner was called Rosie's, and it had been there longer than Cole had been alive, a Boston institution surviving on decent food and better coffee. They took a booth in the back. Cole ordered for Sophie, even though she was asleep, scrambled eggs and toast she'd pick at when she woke. Maya ordered black coffee and French toast and didn't make eye contact with the waitress. For the first few minutes they sat in silence. Maya wrapped both hands around her coffee mug like she was trying to absorb its warmth. Her nails were bitten short. No polish. The pale line on her ring finger was more obvious in this light. You don't have to tell me anything, Cole said finally. But if you want to talk, I'm a decent listener. Maya stared into her coffee. Why? Why what? Why do you care? You don't know me. Your daughter's fine. You could have just left. Cole thought about that. About why he'd stopped. Why he'd asked why he was sitting in a diner with a stranger when he should be home putting Sophie to bed. Because 2 years ago, my wife died in a car accident. And for the first 6 months after everyone asked how I was doing, and I said fine even though I was falling apart. And exactly nobody pushed harder. Everybody just accepted the lie and moved on. I guess I don't want to be that person. Maya's eyes finally met his. Something in them cracked open. I'm sorry about your wife. I'm sorry about your mother. She chose to leave. That's different. Pain is pain. Maya took a long drink of coffee. When she set the mug down, her hands were steadier. I got evicted yesterday. From the hostel I've been staying at for the last 2 weeks. Before that, I got evicted from my apartment after my fiancé emptied our joint account and disappeared. Before that, I got fired from my full-time nursing position because I had a nervous breakdown in the middle of a shift and screamed at a patient's family member. So now I'm working per diem at 6 different hospitals, living nowhere, and trying very hard not to think about the fact that I'm 29 years old and have absolutely nothing to show for it. She delivered this information in a flat, emotionless tone that was somehow more devastating than if she'd cried. Jesus. Yeah. Maya picked up her fork, pushed it around the French toast the waitress had brought. So that's why I looked like I'd been crying in the ER, because I had been. In the bathroom during my break. Very professional. You still showed up. You still did your job. You were great with Sophie. Sophie was easy. She's a good kid, polite, brave. She didn't deserve whatever brought her to the ER at 6 a.m. Strep throat. No, I mean the sadness. She's carrying something heavy for a 5-year-old. Cole's throat tightened. Of course Maya had seen it. Of course this woman who'd been abandoned and betrayed and knocked down recognized grief in a child. She misses her mom. I don't know how to help her with that. You show up. That's how. You were there at 6 a.m. holding her even though you looked like you hadn't slept in days. You stayed with her the whole time. You let her know she's not alone. That's what kids need. Is that what you needed? Maya flinched. I don't know. I never got it, so I can't say if it would have helped. They ate in silence for a while. Sophie stirred in the booth beside Cole, blinked awake, looked around confused until her gaze landed on her father. Daddy. Right here, baby. We're getting breakfast. You hungry? Sophie considered this, then shook her head. But she saw the toast on the plate Cole had ordered for her and picked up a piece nibbled at the corner. Sophie, this is Maya. She was your nurse at the hospital. Sophie looked at Maya with sleepy curiosity. You sang to me. I did. Did it help? Yeah. Sophie took another bite of toast. My mommy used to sing that song. I know. It's a good song. She died. Maya's expression didn't change, didn't go soft with pity or awkward with not knowing what to say. She just nodded. That must be really hard. It is. Daddy gets sad about it. I bet he does. It's okay to be sad when you miss someone. Are you sad? Maya glanced at Cole, something asking permission in her eyes. He nodded slightly. If his daughter was going to be this direct, the least he could do was let Maya be honest back. Yeah, sweetheart. I'm pretty sad right now. Why? Because sometimes grown-ups mess up and lose things they care about. Sophie processed this while chewing her toast. I'm sorry you're sad. Thank you. I'm sorry you're sad too. They regarded each other across the table, a 5-year-old and a 29-year-old who'd both learned too young that people leave, that things end, that the world doesn't stop breaking your heart just because you've already been broken before. Cole watched them and felt something shift in his chest. An idea forming, probably a terrible idea, almost certainly a complication he didn't need. He waited until they'd finished eating, until he'd paid the check and they were standing in the parking lot again with the sky starting to spit snow. Can I ask you something? Maya pulled her thin jacket tighter. I guess. Do you have anywhere to be today? Not really. I don't have another shift until tomorrow night. And you're staying where exactly? Her jaw tightened. I'll figure something out. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. Cole looked down at Sophie, who was leaning against his leg, still exhausted from the fever. Looked back at Maya, who was trying so hard to hold herself together and failing in ways that were painful to witness. The idea crystallized into something he could actually say out loud. I need a nanny. Maya blinked. What? For Sophie. I've gone through 5 in the last 6 months. She won't warm up to any of them, won't talk to them, won't let them help her. I work 60, 70 hours a week and she's basically raising herself with various rotating strangers who she hates. I'm not a nanny, I'm a nurse. You're good with kids. You got Sophie to smile and sleep and feel safe in the space of 10 minutes. That's more than anyone else has managed. This is insane. You don't know me. You don't know me either, but I'm offering you a job. $4,000 a month plus room and board in my guest suite. Full benefits. I need someone who can pick Sophie up from school, make her dinner, put her to bed on nights I'm working late. Someone who'll actually give a damn about her instead of just collecting a paycheck. Maya stared at him like he'd grown a second head. You're serious. Completely. Why would you trust me with your daughter? I just told you I had a breakdown and got fired. You also showed up for your shift last night even though you're homeless. You sang to my kid. You treated her like a person instead of a problem. And right now she's looking at you like you might be someone worth trusting. Sophie doesn't trust anyone. It was true. Sophie had moved from leaning against Cole's leg to standing slightly closer to Maya, watching her with open curiosity. "This is crazy," Maya said again, but her voice had less conviction. "Probably, but I'm desperate and you're homeless and my daughter likes you. Sometimes crazy is all we've got. I don't need charity. It's not charity. It's a job. You'd be working. I'd be paying you. That's called employment. I could be a terrible person. I could steal from you. I could hurt your kid. You won't." "How do you know?" "Because terrible people don't cry in bathroom breaks about their lives falling apart. They don't show up for work anyway. They don't sing lullabies to other people's children like it matters." Maya's eyes were shining now. She looked away, blinking hard. "I don't have references. My last employer won't give me a good one. I don't care. I'm a mess. Join the club. So am I. Your daughter deserves better. My daughter deserves someone who sees her. You saw her in 10 minutes better than most people do in 10 days. That's what she needs." The snow was falling harder now, dusting Maya's dark hair with white. She looked at Sophie, who looked back with those two old eyes. "Do you want me to stay?" Maya asked her directly. Sophie considered the question with the seriousness of someone much older. "Will you sing to me again?" "If you want me to." "Then yes. I want you to stay." Maya closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were bright with tears that didn't quite fall. "Okay." Her voice cracked on the word. "Okay, I'll try it. But if this doesn't work, if I'm not good at it, you have to promise to fire me. Don't keep me around out of pity. Deal. But you have to promise to actually try, to show up, to not disappear without warning." Something flickered across Maya's face, pain, maybe, or recognition. She nodded. "I promise." They shook on it there in the parking lot while snow fell, and Sophie watched, and neither of them had any idea what they'd just agreed to, only that it felt like standing at the edge of something that might save them, or destroy them, or possibly both. Cole drove them back to the penthouse, Maya silent in the passenger seat with a garbage bag containing everything she owned in the world balanced on her lap. Sophie fell asleep again in the back. The city scrolled past, indifferent to the strange configuration of three broken people trying to form something like a family. The penthouse hit Maya like a physical force. Cole watched her take in the marble entryway, the floor-to-ceiling windows, the open floor plan that cost more per month than most people made in a year. He tried to see it through her eyes, the obscene wealth, the empty spaces, the careful interior design that looked like a magazine spread and felt like a mausoleum. "This is where you live." Her voice had gone small. "Unfortunately. It's soulless." "Yeah. Lisa decorated it. I haven't had the heart to change anything." Maya walked slowly through the space, taking it in. She stopped at the windows, looked out at the city spread below. "I've never been this high up before." "It's overrated. The view gets old." She turned to look at him. "Does it?" "No, but it seems like the right thing to say." Her laugh was startled, genuine. Cole felt something in his chest ease slightly. "Let me show you your room." He led her down the hallway, Sophie heavy in his arms. The guest suite was at the far end, bedroom, bathroom, small sitting area. Impersonal as a hotel, but clean and warm and infinitely better than a hostel or the street. Maya stood in the doorway, not entering. "This is mine. For as long as you're here. It's bigger than my last apartment. Make yourself at home. Bathroom's stocked with basics, but let me know if you need anything else. Kitchen's open anytime. Sophie's room is the second door on the left if you need her in the night." Maya set her garbage bag down just inside the door. Everything she owned in a black plastic bag. The contrast with his obscene wealth made Cole feel vaguely sick. "I should put Sophie down for a real nap. She's had a rough morning." "Yeah, Okay. Maya wrapped her arms around herself. Thank you for this. I know I said it's not charity and I'm going to earn my pay, but thank you. Thank you for saying yes. They stood there for a moment, these two strangers who'd somehow become responsible for each other in the span of a few hours. Then Cole carried his daughter to her room, laid her in bed with her worn bare, pulled the curtains against the gray afternoon. He paused in the doorway, looking back at her sleeping face. You're going to be okay, he thought. We're all going to be okay. He almost believed it. The first week passed in a series of small adjustments that felt monumental. Maya moved through the penthouse like someone afraid of leaving fingerprints, careful not to touch anything, not to claim any space beyond the guest suite. She did her job with quiet efficiency, picked Sophie up from kindergarten, made simple dinners, established a bedtime routine that actually worked. Sophie bloomed under the attention. Within 3 days she was talking to Maya in full sentences instead of single-word answers. Within 5, she was laughing. Cole came home at 7 p.m. on Friday early, for him still too late by any reasonable standard, and found them in the living room. Maya sat on the floor with markers and paper spread around her. Sophie was next to her, both of them drawing. "Daddy!" Sophie scrambled up, ran to him with a paper clutched in her hand. "Look what Maya taught me." The drawing was simple, a house, a tree, a stick-figure family. But the figures had faces with expressions, details that showed someone had taught her to actually look at what she was drawing instead of just copying shapes. "This is beautiful, baby." "Maya's a real artist. She went to art school and everything." Cole looked over Sophie's head at Maya, who'd stayed on the floor gathering markers. Her cheeks were flushed. "Art school. Long time ago. Different life." She stood, capped the last marker. "Dinner's almost ready. I made chicken and vegetables. Sophie helped." "I cut the carrots," Sophie announced proudly. "Maya let me use a real knife. A small one," she added quickly, reading the expression on Cole's face. "We were very careful." They ate dinner together at the kitchen island, Sophie chattering about her day, Maya quiet but present. Cole trying to remember the last time his home had felt this alive, after Maya did dishes while Sophie picked out a book for bedtime. Cole stood in the doorway watching Maya work efficient movements that spoke of someone who'd worked 100 different jobs, who knew how to clean a kitchen quickly and well. "You don't have to do that. I have someone who comes to clean." "I don't mind. I like keeping busy." "Maya," she turned dish towel in hand, "you're doing great. With Sophie, I mean. She's happier than I've seen her in months." Maya's expression flickered with something complicated. "She's a good kid, easy to care about." "Still, thank you." "You're paying me. You don't need to thank me." "Yes, I do." They looked at each other across the kitchen, and Cole felt it again, that strange pull, that sense of recognition, like they were both people who'd learned to function while bleeding internally, and maybe that made them dangerous to each other, or maybe it made them the only ones who could understand. Sophie appeared in the doorway with a stack of books. "Ready for stories?" Maya smiled, handed Cole the dish towel. "Your turn. I've got some things to do." She disappeared down the hallway to her room. Cole read to Sophie 3 books, then a 4th, when she begged and tucked her in with the worn bear. "I like Maya," Sophie said sleepily. "I'm glad." "Are you going to marry her?" Cole choked on nothing. "What number baby Maya works for us. She's here to help take care of you. But you look at her the way you used to look at Mommy." "Sophie, it's okay if you like her daddy. I think Mommy would want you to be happy." Cole's throat closed. He kissed his daughter's forehead, unable to find words that wouldn't come out broken. "Sleep tight, baby. Love you, Daddy. Love you too, more than anything." He left her door cracked open, walked back through the too big penthouse to his own room, stood at the window watching the city while his daughter's words echoed in his head. "You look at her the way you used to look at Mommy." He didn't. He couldn't. Maya was here for Sophie. This was a professional arrangement. The fact that she had sad eyes and a beautiful voice, and the kind of quiet strength that came from surviving things that should have broken her didn't mean anything. The fact that dinner with her and Sophie had felt like the first real family meal he'd had in 2 years didn't mean anything. It couldn't mean anything. Cole poured himself scotch he wouldn't drink and tried very hard not to think about the woman sleeping down the hall. 2 weeks became 3. The routine solidified. Maya proved to be exactly what Sophie needed present, but not smothering fun, but firm, someone who treated a 5-year-old like a person capable of having opinions and making choices. She taught Sophie to cook simple things. She took her to the park even when it was cold. She read with genuine interest instead of obligation. And she never overstepped. Never tried to be Sophie's mother. Never claimed authority she hadn't earned. She was just there. Steady. Present. The first stable thing in Sophie's life since Lisa died. Cole found himself coming home earlier. Not for any specific reason. Just because he wanted to. Because he was curious what they'd been doing all day. Because Sophie's laughter echoing through the penthouse was the best sound he'd heard in years. He told himself it was about Sophie. He was lying. The truth hit him on a Thursday night in late December. He came home at 6:30 to find Maya in the kitchen stirring something on the stove while Sophie sat at the counter doing homework. Neither of them noticed him immediately. He stood in the doorway watching. Maya was humming under her breath the Mockingbird song, he realized. Sophie looked up from her math worksheet. Maya, what's 7 plus 8? What do you think it is? 15. Show me how you got there. Sophie counted on her fingers, face screwed up in concentration. 7 and 3 is 10, then 5 more. 15. Perfect. See? You knew it. You just had to trust yourself. Sophie beamed. Maya smiled back, reached over to ruffle her hair, and the casual affection in the gesture made something crack in Cole's chest. He wanted this. Not just for Sophie, for himself. He wanted to come home to warmth and laughter and someone who looked at his daughter like she mattered. Someone who looked at him like he might be more than his bank account and his job title. Someone who saw him. Maya glanced up, caught him watching. Her smile faltered. Hi, didn't hear you come in. Just got here. He set down his briefcase, loosened his tie. Something smells good. Beef stew. Nothing fancy. Daddy. Sophie abandoned her homework to hug him. I got 100 on my spelling test. That's my girl. I'm so proud of you. They ate together, Sophie carrying most of the conversation with stories about school and her friend Emma, who could do a cartwheel. Maya was quiet, but her eyes tracked every move Sophie made with an attention that spoke of genuine care. After dinner, after Sophie was in bed, Cole found Maya in the living room. She sat curled in the corner of the couch with a sketchbook balanced on her knees, pencil moving in quick strokes. Can I see? She startled, nearly dropped the pencil. For a moment he thought she'd refuse. Then she turned the sketchbook around. It was Sophie, captured in charcoal mid-laugh, her whole face lit with joy. The detail was incredible, every line precise, the expression so alive it almost seemed like the drawing might speak. Maya, you're really talented. It's just a hobby now. Why'd you stop? You said you went to art school. She closed the sketchbook, set it aside. Because art doesn't pay bills. Because after my dad died, I needed something practical. Nursing seemed like a good choice. Stable, useful. Turns out I wasn't as good at it as I thought. That's not true. You were great with Sophie at the hospital. One good shift doesn't erase having a breakdown and screaming at a patient's family. What happened? Maya was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was carefully controlled. It was a kid, 8 years old, leukemia. We'd been treating him for months. I got attached. You're not supposed to, but I did. And when he crashed, when we lost him, his mother started screaming at me, saying we didn't do enough, that we killed him. And something in me just broke. I screamed back. Told her we did everything, that sometimes kids die and it's not anyone's fault, that she needed to shut up and let us do our jobs. Jesus. Yeah. Security had to escort me out. I was fired that afternoon. My fiancé found out, said he couldn't handle being with someone that unstable. 3 days later, he emptied our account and disappeared. I got evicted a week after that." She laughed without humor. "So that's the story of how I ended up homeless and working per diem at 6 hospitals that will take me because they're desperate but won't hire me full-time because I'm a liability." Cole sat down on the other end of the couch, maintaining respectful distance. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. I made my choices. You lost control one time after watching a child die. That doesn't make you unstable. That makes you human. Tell that to my employment record. I'm serious, you're good at this. At caring, at being present. Sophie's better because of you." Maya met his eyes. "She's better because someone's actually paying attention to her. You work too much." The words should have stung. Instead, they felt like relief. Someone finally saying out loud what he'd been thinking for months. "I know. So why do you do it?" "Because if I slow down, if I stop, I have to think about the fact that my wife is dead and my daughter is growing up without her mother, and it's my fault because I sent Lisa out in that storm." The confession came out raw, unfiltered. "So I work. I build things and make deals and convince myself I'm providing for Sophie when really I'm just hiding." Maya's expression softened. "It's not your fault." "You don't know that." "Yes, I do. Because blame doesn't work that way. Your wife made a choice to drive. The roads made a choice to ice over. Physics made a choice about how cars react to black ice. You made a choice to ask her to go to a meeting. All of those things are true and none of them make you a murderer." "Then why does it feel like I killed her?" "Because guilt is easier than grief. If it's your fault, you have control. You could have prevented it. But if it's not your fault, if it's just random chaos and terrible luck, then you have to accept that bad things happen and you can't always stop them. And that's terrifying." Cole stared at her. "How do you know that?" "Because I spent 20 years blaming myself for my mother leaving. Convinced myself if I'd been better, smarter, less needy, she would have stayed. And then she showed up last year asking for money and I realized she left because she was selfish and broken and it had nothing to do with me. And somehow that was worse. Because at least when it was my fault it made sense." "Did you give her money?" "No. I told her to leave and never contact me again." Maya's smile was bitter. "Probably why my fiancé left. Said I had anger issues, unresolved trauma. Maybe he was right. Or maybe he was an asshole who didn't deserve you." She laughed, real laughter this time, surprised and genuine. "Maybe." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Outside, snow had started falling again. The city glittered below a million lives being lived in a million different ways. "Can I ask you something?" Maya's voice was quiet. "Sure." "Why did you really hire me the truth?" Cole considered lying. Considered saying something about Sophie needing stability, about desperation, about any of the surface-level reasons. But Maya had been honest with him. She deserved honesty back. "Because when you sang to Sophie, something in you broke open. Just for a second. And I saw someone who understood what it felt like to love something so much it hurt. And I thought maybe someone who understands that could help my daughter learn to live with it, learn to be happy despite it." Maya's eyes were bright. "And has it worked?" She's laughing again. She's drawing. She's asking me about my day and telling me about hers. So yeah, it's working. "Good." Maya pulled her knees up to her chest, wrapped her arms around them. "She's a special kid. She deserves to be happy." "So do you." "I'm working on it." "Yeah, me too." The moment stretched between them, heavy with things neither could say. Cole felt it pulling at him, the urge to move closer, to reach out, to cross the careful distance they'd maintained. But Sophie was asleep down the hall, and Maya worked for him, and this was complicated enough without adding something that would definitely make it worse. He stood up. "I should let you get some sleep. Thanks for dinner." "Any time." He made it halfway to his room before he heard her voice. "Cole." He turned. She was standing in the living room doorway, backlit by the city lights. "Thank you for giving me a chance when you had no reason to trust me, for letting me be part of Sophie's life, for seeing me." His throat tightened. "Thank you for staying." They looked at each other across the dimly lit hallway, and Cole knew with absolute certainty that this was going to get complicated. That whatever this was between them, recognition, attraction, shared grief, mutual understanding, it was going to grow into something that couldn't be contained by the boundaries of employer and employee. He also knew he didn't care. Sophie appeared in her doorway, rubbing her eyes. "I had a bad dream." The moment shattered. Maya moved first, crossing to Sophie, kneeling down to her level. "Want to tell me about it? Mommy was gone and I couldn't find her, and Daddy was sad and everyone was leaving." "Oh, sweetheart." Maya pulled her into a hug. "That sounds scary. Are you going to leave?" The question hung in the air. Cole watched Maya's face, saw her fighting something internal. "No," she said finally, firmly. "I'm not going anywhere. I promise." "Promise, promise like you really mean it. Promise, promise." Sophie relaxed against her. Maya looked up, caught Cole's eye. Something passed between them. Commitment maybe, or warning. This wasn't just a job anymore. This was three broken people trying to become a family. "Let's get you back to bed," Maya said softly. She led Sophie back into her room. Cole followed, stood in the doorway while Maya tucked her in, sang quietly until Sophie's eyes drifted closed. When they stepped back into the hallway, Maya whispered, "She's scared we're going to leave her like her mother did." "I know. We can't. We can't promise to stay and then disappear. She wouldn't survive it." "I know." Maya looked at him, and in her eyes he saw his own fear reflected back. This was real now. They'd made promises to a child who'd already lost too much. There was no backing out, no testing the waters, no keeping this casual. "Are we doing the right thing?" she asked. "I have no idea, but we're doing it anyway." She nodded slowly. "Okay, then we do it all the way. No half measures, no running when it gets hard. Deal." They shook on it there in the hallway outside Sophie's room the same way they'd shaken in the parking lot 3 weeks ago. But this time it felt different, more binding, like they were making vows that had nothing to do with employment and everything to do with survival. The next morning, Cole woke to the smell of pancakes. He found Maya and Sophie in the kitchen, both wearing aprons, both covered in flour. They were laughing about something, Sophie's face bright with joy. Cole stood in the doorway watching them and felt something he hadn't felt in 2 years. Hope. Maybe they wouldn't make it. Maybe this fragile thing they were building would collapse under the weight of their combined damage. Maybe he'd screw it up like he screwed up everything else. But maybe not. Maybe 3 broken people could create something whole. Maybe loss didn't have to be the end of the story. Maybe, just maybe, they were going to be okay. Sophie looked up, saw him, grinned. "Daddy, Maya's teaching me to flip pancakes." "I see that. You're doing great, baby." Maya glanced over her shoulder, smiled. Just a small smile, nothing dramatic. But it reached her eyes this time. "Morning. Coffee's ready." "Thanks." He poured himself a cup, joined them at the counter. Sophie chattered about her technique, about how you had to wait for bubbles before flipping. Maya guided her hands, patient and gentle. And Cole thought, this is it. This is what I've been missing. Not perfection, not the absence of pain, just presence, just showing up, just 3 people choosing each other despite every reason not to. Outside, snow fell soft against the windows. Inside, a small family that didn't exist 3 weeks ago sat down to breakfast together. It was enough. For now, it was more than enough. January came to Boston like a reckoning. The snow that had fallen soft in December turned hard and gray, piled in dirty mounds along sidewalks where people's breath crystallized in the air. Inside the penthouse, something else was melting, the careful distance Cole and Maya had maintained, the professional boundaries that were supposed to keep everything simple and safe. Sophie drew them together without meaning to. She started small, asking if Maya could stay for bedtime stories, even on nights Cole was home early. then bigger, insisting both of them attend her kindergarten winter concert, sitting between them in the audience, reaching for both their hands when she spotted her friends. Cole felt it happening, the shift from hired help to something undefined and dangerous, and told himself to pull back. He didn't. The morning after the concert, he found Maya in the kitchen before dawn. She stood at the window in pajama pants and a sweatshirt too big for her frame, watching the sky lighten over the city. Her hair was loose, falling past her shoulders in waves she usually kept contained. Something about seeing her like this, unguarded, soft-edged, made his chest tighten. Couldn't sleep. She turned, startled. "Sorry. Did I wake you?" "No. I'm always up early." He moved to the coffee maker, began the familiar ritual. "Want some? Please." They stood in silence while the machine hissed and dripped. Through the wall they could hear Sophie's music box playing faintly, the one that had been Lisa's as a child, that Sophie insisted on winding every night. "She talks about her mother more now." Maya's voice was quiet. "Good things. Happy memories. That's healthy." "You've been reading parenting books." "Maybe." A hint of defensiveness crept in. "Is that okay?" "It's great. I should probably read them too, instead of just throwing money at problems and hoping they go away." Maya accepted the coffee mug he handed her, wrapped both hands around it the way she always did. "You're a good father, Cole. You show up. That's more than a lot of kids get. I showed up after I hired you to do the actual work. You showed up in the ER at 6 a.m. You held her while she was sick. You came to her concert even though I know you had that board meeting." "How did you know about the board meeting?" "Sophie mentioned it. Said you told them it would have to wait." Maya met his eyes over the rim of her mug. "She's proud of you for choosing her." Something in Cole's throat caught. He'd pushed back on Marcus Webb's latest takeover attempt, delayed the emergency board meeting by a week, because Sophie's first-grade concert wasn't something he was willing to miss anymore. The board had been furious. Webb had sent a formal letter outlining Cole's declining commitment to fiduciary responsibility. Cole had filed it in the trash. Did she really say that she's proud? Exact words. Maya smiled, the real one that transformed her whole face. "You're doing better than you think." The moment stretched between them, loaded with things neither knew how to name. Cole became acutely aware of how she looked in the morning light, how her eyes were less haunted than they'd been a month ago, how she'd started to claim space in his home instead of apologizing for existing in it. He cleared his throat. "I should get ready for work." "Right, yeah, I'll start breakfast." He fled to his room before he could do something stupid like tell her how much her presence had changed everything, how the penthouse felt like a home now instead of a monument to things he'd lost. He showered cold and dressed in his armor, the Armani suit, the Italian shoes, the Rolex he still didn't like wearing because it reminded him of Lisa telling him it made him look like he was trying too hard. When he emerged, Sophie was at the kitchen counter working through a waffle with surgical precision, cutting it into perfect squares before eating each one individually. Maya stood at the stove scrambling eggs, and the scene was so achingly domestic that Cole had to stop in the doorway and just breathe through it. "This is what I want," he thought. "This. Exactly this." The realization terrified him. Work became a battlefield. Marcus Webb escalated from hostile to actively predatory, using Cole's reduced hours as ammunition with the board. CFO Anderson pulled Cole aside after a strategy meeting in mid-January. "We need to talk about your availability." "My availability is fine. You left yesterday at 5:30. You've declined 3 evening dinners with potential investors. Webb is telling the board you're distracted." "Webb can go to hell." Anderson's expression sharpened. "This isn't a joke, Cole. You built this company from your grandfather's garage startup into a major player. Don't let personal issues destroy that." "Personal issues?" Cole's voice went flat. "You mean my daughter?" "I mean whatever's happening in your life that's making you less focused. The board is worried. If Webb calls a vote of no confidence, let him. I'll win." "Will you?" Anderson leaned closer. "Because right now you're working 40 hours a week instead of 70. You're delegating major decisions. You missed the Grayson Tech preliminary meeting entirely. That's not the Cole Brennan who built this empire. Maybe that Cole Brennan was building the wrong thing. Anderson stared at him. Are you having a breakdown? I'm having a realization. There's a difference. Not from where the board sits. Anderson stood, adjusted his tie. Figure out what you want, Cole. This company or whatever's distracting you, because you can't have both. The conversation replayed in Cole's head all afternoon. He made it until 4:30 before texting Maya that he was coming home early. Her response came immediately. Sophie will be thrilled. Lasagna for dinner. Perfect, he wrote back and meant it. But when he arrived home, he found Maya pacing the living room with her phone pressed to her ear, her expression shuttered and tense. Sophie sat on the couch watching her with worried eyes. I don't care what you need. I told you to never contact me again. Maya's voice was ice. No. No, I'm not interested in your excuses. You made your choices. Live with them. She ended the call, stood there breathing hard. When she noticed Cole, her face crumpled for just a second before she got it under control. Who was that? Nobody. Doesn't matter. But her hands were shaking. Sophie slid off the couch, walked to Maya, wrapped her small arms around her waist. Maya's eyes closed, her hand coming up to stroke Sophie's hair. It's okay, Sophie whispered. You don't have to talk to people who make you sad. Maya laughed wetly. When did you get so wise? Maya taught me that sometimes it's okay to be sad, but you don't have to let sad people make you more sad. Cole's heart twisted. He moved closer, keeping his voice gentle. Maya, what's going on? She took a shaky breath. My mother. She found out where I'm living, wants to meet, talk, make amends. The last two words dripped bitterness. I told her no. Good. Maya's eyes snapped to his face, surprised. You don't owe her anything, Cole continued. She left. She gave up the right to your time and energy and forgiveness. If you want to talk to her, that's your choice. But you don't have to. She said she's sick, that she needs help. That's not your problem. She's my mother. Biology doesn't create obligation. He thought of his own mother, dead 5 years now, from cancer she'd hidden until it was too late because she didn't want to burden anyone. Thought of all the ways family could hurt you, even when they loved you. You get to choose who's in your life, Maya. Anyone who makes you feel like you have to earn your place doesn't deserve to be there. Something in her face shifted. Sophie was still clinging to her, and Maya held her tighter. Thank you, she whispered. They ate lasagna that tasted like comfort. Sophie chattered about her day, about how Emma had fallen on the playground and Maya had cleaned her knee and put on a Band-Aid with stars, about how Mr. Chen, their neighbor, had asked if Maya was her new mom, and Sophie had said maybe, sort of, kind of, because it was complicated. Cole's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. What did you say? Sophie shrugged, unconcerned. That it's complicated. Because Maya lives with us and takes care of me, but she's not married to you, so I don't know if that counts as a mom or what. Maya had gone very still. Cole could see her pulse beating in her throat. Sophie, honey, Maya is your nanny. She works for us. I know, but she feels like family. Sophie looked between them, confused by the sudden tension. Isn't she? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Cole opened his mouth to explain professional boundaries to reinforce the safe distance they were supposed to maintain, but Maya spoke first. I feel like family too. 3 words that changed everything. Sophie beamed. See, I told Mr. Chen it was complicated. After dinner, after Sophie was in bed, Cole found Maya in her usual spot on the couch with her sketchbook. But she wasn't drawing, just sitting with the pencil loose in her hand, staring at nothing. I shouldn't have said that. About feeling like family. It was unprofessional. It was honest. Cole sat on the other end of the couch. And Sophie needed to hear it. She needs to know she's not going to lose you. How can you promise that people leave? It's what they do. Not all people. Not everyone. Your wife left. The words hit like a fist. Cole flinched, but Maya didn't back down. She didn't choose to, but she still left. And Sophie knows that. She knows people disappear. So when she asks if I'm family, what she's really asking is, am I going to stay? And I can't promise that because I don't know. Maya's voice cracked. I don't know what happens when you decide you don't need me anymore. When Sophie gets older and doesn't need a nanny. When you meet someone you actually want to build a life with instead of just someone convenient to help with your daughter. You think that's what this is, convenience? Isn't it? Cole moved before thinking it through, closing the distance between them, taking her hands in his. She stared at their joined fingers like she couldn't quite believe they were real. Maya, you terrify me. From the moment you sang to Sophie in that ER, you've terrified me. Because you made me feel things I thought died with Lisa. You made me want things I'd convinced myself I didn't deserve. You walk into a room and the air changes. Sophie lights up when she sees you. I come home early just to hear you laugh. That's not convenience. That's... He stopped, because finishing that sentence meant crossing a line they couldn't uncross. That's what... Her voice was barely a whisper. Dangerous. That's dangerous. Why? Because you work for me. Because Sophie's attached to you. Because if this goes wrong, we don't just break our own hearts. We break hers. And I can't... His voice roughened. I can't do that to her. I can't risk her losing someone else she loves. Maya pulled her hands free. Then we don't risk it. We keep it professional. We maintain boundaries. Is that what you want? What I want doesn't matter. Yes, it does. It's the only thing that matters. She looked at him, then really looked, and he saw his own conflict reflected back the want war with the fear, the hope crushed under the weight of past losses. I want to stay, she whispered. I want this to be real. I want Sophie to be right that I'm family. I want... She broke off, shook her head. It doesn't matter. Tell me anyway. I want you to look at me the way you're looking at me right now every day for the rest of my life. I want to matter to someone the way I mattered to my father before he died. I want to build something that doesn't fall apart the second I start to trust it. Cole's hand came up, cupped her face. She leaned into the touch like she was starving for it. You matter, he told her. To Sophie. To me. You matter more than you know. They were close enough now that he could see the gold flecks in her amber eyes, could count the freckles across her nose, could feel her breath against his lips. The distance between them was nothing. Everything. A choice they both knew they shouldn't make. His phone shattered the moment. Marcus Webb's name flashed on the screen. Cole cursed, pulled back, answered. What? Webb's voice came smooth and venomous. Emergency board meeting. Tomorrow 9 a.m. I'm calling a vote of no confidence. Thought you deserved the courtesy of advance warning. On what grounds? Dereliction of duty, reduced productivity, conflicts of interest. A pause loaded with implication. I've been hearing interesting things about your new live-in nanny. Very cozy arrangement. Board members are concerned about your judgment. Ice flooded Cole's veins. Leave her out of this. Hard to do when you're parading her around like she's family. Brought her to Sophie's concert. Introduced her to clients at the Grayson Tech Mixer. People talk Cole. And what they're saying is that you've lost focus. That you're more interested in playing house than running a company. This is about the Silicon Valley deal. You want me to take it so you can leverage the restructuring into a buyout. This is about a CEO who's forgotten what leadership means. 9 a.m. Cole. Come prepared to defend yourself, or step aside gracefully and we'll make it worth your while. The call ended. Cole stood there gripping his phone hard enough to crack the case. Maya had gone pale. He knows about me. He doesn't know anything. He's fishing. He said conflicts of interest. He meant me. This isn't your fault. Isn't it? She stood, wrapped her arms around herself. I moved into your house. I've been going to Sophie's school events. I was at that mixer because you asked me to come, said Sophie wanted to show me off to your business partners. I've been blurring every line we're supposed to maintain. So have I. You're the CEO. You get to blur lines. I'm the employee sleeping under your roof and everyone knows it and now they're using it against you. Let them try. Cole's voice went hard. I'll destroy Webb before I let him touch you. That's exactly the problem. Maya's composure cracked. You're willing to risk your company, your legacy, everything you built, for what, a woman you've known 6 weeks, a nanny who's going to leave eventually anyway. You said you wanted to stay. I say a lot of things, doesn't make them true. The words landed like blows. Cole stared at her, this woman who'd become essential to his life in the span of a breath, and saw her building walls in real time, protecting herself the only way she knew how, by leaving before she could be left. Don't do this. Do what? Run. You're terrified, so you're going to sabotage this before it has a chance to hurt you. I know because I've done the same thing for 2 years. Maybe we're both right to be terrified. Her voice broke. Maybe this is a disaster waiting to happen and we're just too damaged to see it. Sophie appeared in the doorway in her nightgown, eyes wide. Why are you fighting? They both froze. Cole didn't know how long she'd been standing there, how much she'd heard. We're not fighting, baby. We're just talking about grown-up things. It sounds like fighting. It sounds like when Daddy used to fight with Mommy before she died. The observation hit like a gut punch. Maya's face crumpled. She crossed to Sophie, knelt down. I'm sorry we woke you. We didn't mean to scare you. Are you leaving? Is that what you're fighting about? No, I'm not leaving. Promise. Maya's eyes met Cole's over Sophie's head. He saw the terror there, the uncertainty, the desperate wish to be able to promise something she didn't know if she could deliver. I promise to never leave without saying goodbye. Is that okay? It was the most honest answer she could give. Sophie seemed to accept it. Let Maya lead her back to bed, tuck her in again. Cole stood in the doorway watching while Maya sang the Mockingbird song soft and low until Sophie's eyes drifted shut. In the hallway, after they stood in waited silence. I'm sorry, Maya whispered, for what I said. I didn't mean... You meant it. You're scared. I get it. Are you going to lose your company because of me? I don't know. Maybe. Does it matter? Her eyes widened. Of course it matters. It's your legacy, your family's business, everything you've worked for. It's a company, buildings and contracts and stock prices. Sophie is my legacy. You... He stopped, swallowed hard. You've given me back something I thought I'd lost. Whatever happens tomorrow, that's worth more than any empire. You don't mean that. I've never meant anything more in my life. They stood there in the dim hallway with Sophie sleeping beyond the cracked door, and Cole knew they'd reached a turning point. Tomorrow he'd walk into that boardroom and fight for his position. Fight for the company his grandfather built. Fight for everything he'd spent 15 years growing. But tonight, right now, all he wanted to fight for was this, a makeshift family held together by need and hope and the fragile belief that maybe broken people could build something whole. He took Maya's hand. She didn't pull away. Whatever happens tomorrow, we figure it out together. Okay? Her fingers tightened on his. Okay. It wasn't a declaration of love, wasn't a promise of forever, but it was a choice to stay, to face whatever came next as a unit instead of as isolated survivors. It was enough. For now, it was everything. The board meeting started at 9 a.m. sharp in the conference room on the 20th floor. Cole walked in wearing his best suit and the kind of cold fury that came from spending a sleepless night preparing for war. The room was already full. 8 board members, Marcus Webb lounging at the far end looking smug, CFO Anderson studying papers with studied neutrality. Webb wasted no time. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on short notice. I've called this meeting because I believe we're facing a leadership crisis. Cole Brennan's recent behavior suggests he's no longer capable of providing the focused direction this company requires. That's bullshit, and you know it. Cole remained standing, refused to sit. Company performance is up 12% year over year. We've closed 3 major contracts this quarter. Our stock price is at an all-time high. Stock price built on momentum you're no longer sustaining. Webb slid a folder across the table. Your hours have decreased by 40%. You've delegated critical decisions to subordinates. You missed the preliminary meeting with our largest potential partner. This company needs a leader who's present, committed, and focused. You're none of those things. I'm present for what matters. Like your daughter's kindergarten concert. Webb's smile was shark-like. Admirable as a father, unacceptable as a CEO. Attending my child's school event makes me unfit to lead. Choosing it over a $800 million partnership discussion does. You've lost perspective, Cole. Everyone in this room can see it. Anderson cleared his throat. Marcus has a point about the Grayson meeting. That was a significant opportunity. That I've since rescheduled. The deal isn't dead. But it's weakened. Webb leaned forward. Because they saw you prioritize personal matters over business. It sends a message that we're not hungry anymore, that we've gotten comfortable. Cole's hands clenched at his sides. I'm proposing a different message, that we're a company that values people, that we understand success isn't just profit margins. Since when? Webb's eyebrows rose. You built this company on 60-hour weeks and ruthless efficiency. You were the first one in and last one out. You sacrificed everything for growth. Now you're leaving at 5:30 to play house with your nanny. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Cole's voice went dangerously quiet. Careful, Marcus. It's a legitimate concern. You've moved an employee into your home. You're bringing her to company events. Board members are worried about conflicts of interest, about inappropriate relationships affecting your judgment. Maya takes care of my daughter. That's her job. What I do in my personal life is none of this board's business. It is when it affects your performance, when it makes you vulnerable to compromising situations. Webb pulled out another document. I have reports from 3 different company events where you and Miss Hartford were seen in what witnesses described as intimate conversation, where she was introduced not as an employee, but as family. So, you've been having me followed. That's low even for you. I've been protecting this company from a CEO who's lost his edge. You're not the man who built Brennan Technologies, Cole. That man wouldn't have let a pretty face distract him from a Silicon Valley partnership worth $500 million. Cole moved before thinking, was across the room with his hands on Webb's jacket, hauling him up from his chair. Say another word about her and I'll prove my point. Webb didn't struggle, just smiled. Go ahead. Assault me in front of 8 witnesses. Really demonstrate that stable leadership we're all counting on. Anderson was on his feet. Cole, let him go. Cole's arms were shaking with the effort of not following through. He released Webb with a shove, stepped back. You want to question my leadership? Fine. Let's talk about how you've been positioning for a hostile takeover since October. How you've been leveraging relationships with board members to isolate me. How you leaked confidential information to TechCorp last quarter. Cole pulled his own folder from his briefcase, slapped it on the table. Maya found your embezzlement. The CFO missed it. Our auditors missed it. But a woman you're calling a distraction caught you siphoning funds through shell companies in 3 different states. Webb's face went white. Anderson grabbed the folder, started flipping through pages. This is... Anderson looked up, shocked. This is $2.3 million in unauthorized transfers. Fabricated evidence. But Webb's voice had lost its certainty. Bank records don't lie. Neither do email trails. You've been stealing from this company for 18 months while trying to convince the board I'm the problem. The room erupted. Board members talking over each other, demanding explanations. Webb backed toward the door. This isn't over, Cole. Even if you discredit me, the fundamental question remains, are you still capable of leading this company? Get out. You'll have to answer it eventually, her or the company. You can't have both. Webb left. The board meeting dissolved into chaos. Anderson pulled Cole aside. This is serious. If what you're alleging is true, it's true. Verify it. Call the banks. Check the emails. It's all there. I will. But Cole, he's right about one thing. The board is concerned about your availability, your focus. I'm focused on building something sustainable instead of burning myself out chasing endless growth. If that's not what this company wants, maybe I'm not the right leader." Anderson stared at him. "Are you saying you'd walk away?" "I'm saying I'm not going to sacrifice my daughter's childhood for a company that thinks 40-hour weeks are a sign of weakness. I'm not going to destroy myself the way I destroyed my marriage chasing success that doesn't mean anything if I'm alone at the top." That's quite a shift from the Cole Brennan who built this place. Maybe that Cole Brennan was building the wrong thing. Cole left before Anderson could respond, took the elevator down 40 floors with his heart hammering and his hands still shaking from not hitting Webb. His phone buzzed Maya. "How did it go?" He typed back. "Might have just destroyed my career." "Coming home." Her response, "We'll figure it out." 3 words that felt like a life raft. He drove home through midday traffic, mind racing through implications. Webb was finished, the embezzlement evidence was ironclad. But the questions he'd raised weren't wrong. Cole had changed. He was working less, delegating, more prioritizing Sophie in ways that definitely affected his availability for the constant demands of CEO life. The question was whether that made him a better leader or a worse one. The penthouse was quiet when he arrived. Maya sat at the kitchen counter with her laptop open, spreadsheets covering the screen. She looked up when he entered search. The penthouse was quiet when he arrived. Maya sat at the kitchen counter with her laptop open, spreadsheets covering the screen. She looked up when he entered, searched his face for answers he didn't have yet. "Sophie's at Emma's house for a play date. I thought you might need space to process." Cole dropped his briefcase, loosened his tie. "Webb's done. The embezzlement evidence is solid. Criminal charges pending." "That's good, right?" "The board still wants answers about my commitment. Anderson's calling for a formal review of my performance over the next quarter." He poured water from the pitcher Maya always kept ready, drank it without tasting. "They're not wrong to question it. I have changed." Maya closed her laptop. "Is that bad?" "I don't know. Maybe. Probably." He set down the glass harder than intended. 2 years ago I would have crushed Webb without breaking a sweat. Would have seen his move coming months earlier. Would have had contingency plans in place. 2 years ago your wife was alive and you were working yourself into an early grave. The bluntness of it hit like cold water. Cole turned to face her fully. "You think Lisa died because I worked too much. I think she drove in a storm to a meeting that could have waited because you convinced both of you it couldn't. I think you spent 2 years punishing yourself for it by working even harder. And I think Sophie was disappearing while you tried to outrun grief." Maya's voice stayed level, but her eyes were fierce. "So yes, you've changed. You're present for your daughter now. You're building a life instead of a monument. If the board can't see that as strength, maybe they're measuring the wrong things." Cole crossed to her, stopped with just the counter between them. "You found Webb's embezzlement in 3 weeks. Our forensic accountants missed it for 18 months. I got lucky. Saw a pattern that didn't make sense. You're brilliant. Stop diminishing yourself." Pink colored her cheeks. "I'm competent with numbers. That's different. You could do more than nanny work. You know that, right? You could." "What? Go back to nursing, where I had a breakdown and got fired. Try art school again, where I dropped out because I couldn't afford tuition after my dad died." Bitterness crept into her tone. "I'm doing exactly what I'm qualified for. Taking care of someone else's child because I destroyed my own life." "You didn't destroy anything. Life happened to you. Life happens to everyone. Some of us handle it better." "That's bullshit." Cole's hands pressed flat on the counter. "You've been dealt a terrible hand, and you're still standing, still showing up, still taking care of Sophie like she's your own. That's not failure, that's surviving." Maya's eyes were bright. "Is it because it feels like I'm hiding, using your money and your home and your daughter to avoid facing the mess I made?" "You're not hiding. You're healing." "What if I don't heal? What if this is all I am now, broken and scared and incapable of building anything that lasts?" The vulnerability in her voice cracked something open in Cole's chest. He moved around the counter slowly, giving her time to retreat if she wanted. She didn't. He reached for her hands, found them cold despite the warm kitchen. "You've already built something. Sophie adores you." She laughs again. She talks about the future instead of just missing the past. "You did that. You did that. By being her father, by choosing to be present. We did it together." His thumbs stroked across her knuckles. "And I don't want to stop. Whatever the board decides, whatever happens with the company, I need you to know that you're not temporary to me. Not anymore." Maya pulled her hands free, wrapped her arms around herself. "Don't say things like that." "Why not?" "Because what happens in 3 months when you meet someone appropriate, someone who went to the right schools and knows how to navigate your world, someone who isn't your employee, living in your house because she had nowhere else to go." "I don't want someone appropriate. I want—" He stopped himself, but barely. "What?" Her voice was barely audible. "What do you want?" The truth sat on his tongue, dangerous and undeniable. Before he could decide whether to say it, his phone erupted with texts. Anderson board members, the company attorney, all saying the same thing: Webb was being arrested, criminal investigation launched, emergency press conference scheduled for 5 p.m. "I have to go back in." Cole stared at his phone. "Damage control. Media strategy. The whole company's about to be under scrutiny. Go. I'll get Sophie from Emma's. Maya. We'll talk later. Go do what you need to do." He wanted to argue to finish the conversation they'd started, but his phone kept buzzing and the company he'd spent 15 years building was in crisis. So he grabbed his briefcase and left, hating himself a little for choosing the company over finishing something that mattered more. The press conference was a controlled disaster. Cole stood beside the company attorney and explained that they'd discovered financial irregularities, that Webb was no longer with the company, that a full audit was underway. Reporters shouted questions about how this had gone undetected, whether Cole's leadership was in question, what this meant for the Silicon Valley partnership. He deflected, redirected, maintained the careful composure that came from years of practice. But inside, exhaustion pulled at him. The adrenaline that had sustained him through the board meeting and Webb's arrest was fading, leaving only the bone-deep tiredness of someone who'd been fighting too many battles for too long. When he finally made it home past 9 p.m., he found Maya curled on the couch with her sketchbook. Sophie was asleep. He'd missed bedtime again, despite his promises to be more present. Maya looked up when he entered, set aside her drawing. "How bad?" "Bad. Stock dropped 7%. Investors are spooked. The board's calling for a full restructuring review." "Can you survive it? Financially?" "Yes. The company's solid underneath Webb's mess. Professionally—" He shrugged off his jacket, dropped onto the couch beside her. "That depends on whether the board believes I can still lead." "Can you?" The question wasn't challenging, just honest. Cole let his head fall back against the cushions, stared at the ceiling. "I don't know. I don't know if I want to anymore." Silence stretched between them. Then Maya shifted closer, not touching, but near enough that he could feel her warmth. "What would you do instead?" "I have no idea. This company is all I've ever done. Started here right out of business school. Poured everything into growing it. Built my entire identity around being the youngest CEO in the company's history." A bitter laugh escaped. "My wife used to joke that I loved the company more than her. Maybe she was right." "She wasn't." Maya's voice was certain. "You loved her. You just didn't know how to balance loving her and building something you thought would keep her safe. Lot of good that did. You can't protect people from random chance, from ice on roads or cancer or any of the 1,000 things that take people away. All you can do is show up while you have them." Cole turned his head to look at her. "Is that what you're doing? Showing up while you have us?" "I'm trying to." She met his gaze. "Even though it terrifies me." "Why does it terrify you?" "Because I always lose people I love. My mother left, my father died, my fiancé stole from me and disappeared. Everyone I've ever trusted has taught me that attachment leads to abandonment. I'm not going anywhere. You say that now, But what happens when... Sophie's scream cut through the apartment. They were both moving before conscious thought, racing down the hallway. Cole hit her doorframe first, but Maya was right behind him. Sophie sat bolt upright in bed, her face flushed, crimson eyes glassy with fever. Again. Exactly like 3 months ago. "Daddy, it hurts. Everything hurts." Maya's training kicked in immediately. "Cole, get the thermometer. Sophie, honey, tell me where it hurts the worst." "My throat and my head, and I'm so cold." Cole returned with the thermometer. 103.8. "We need to bring this down." Maya was already moving, efficient and calm. "Cole, get her a cold washcloth." "Sophie, sweetheart, can you swallow some medicine for me?" They worked in tandem, Maya holding Sophie upright while Cole measured out fever reducer, both of them speaking in soothing tones while Sophie whimpered. The fever started dropping after 20 minutes. Sophie's eyes grew heavy. "Don't leave," she whispered, already half asleep. "Both of you stay." Maya looked at Cole. He nodded. They settled on either side of Sophie's bed, keeping watch while she drifted into fitful sleep. The bedside lamp cast soft shadows across the room. "She's okay," Maya whispered. "Just a virus. Kids spike fevers. It's scary but normal." "I know. Doesn't stop me from panicking every time." "Because the last time someone you loved got sick, she didn't come home." Cole's breath caught. Maya's hand found his across Sophie's sleeping form. "She's not Lisa. This is just a fever. She's going to be fine." "How do you know?" "I don't. But I know that fear doesn't keep people safe. It just keeps us from being present." They sat vigil until Sophie's fever broke completely around midnight. Her breathing evened out, her flush fading. Maya checked her one more time, satisfied. "She'll sleep through now. You should get some rest." But neither of them moved. Cole studied Maya in the dim light, the dark circles under her eyes from too many nights staying up with Sophie, the small smile she wore watching his daughter sleep, the way her hand still held his across the small bed, like she'd forgotten they were touching. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for being here, for knowing what to do, for caring about her like she's mine." Maya's voice was barely audible. "I do. I know I shouldn't. I know she's not. But I can't help it." "Why would you want to help it?" "Because when this ends, when you don't need me anymore, losing her is going to destroy me." "What makes you think it's going to end?" Maya pulled her hand back, stood carefully to not wake Sophie. In the hallway, with the door cracked open behind them, she finally answered, "Because it always does. Because I'm not the kind of person people build futures with. I'm temporary. I've always been temporary." Cole caught her wrist gently. "You're not temporary to Sophie, or to me. You don't know that." "Yes, I do. Because I wake up every morning grateful you're here. Because I rushed home from that press conference even though I had a dozen fires to put out. Because when I think about the future now, you're in it. Both of you." Maya's eyes were swimming. "Cole, don't. Don't say things you don't mean just because we had a scare with Sophie." "I've never meant anything more." He stepped closer, his free hand coming up to cup her face. "I'm falling for you, Maya. Have been since you sang that lullaby. Maybe before. And it terrifies me because I don't know how to do this without destroying it. But I also can't keep pretending this is just professional, that you're just my employee, that you haven't become essential to my life. I'm a mess. So am I. This could ruin everything. Or it could save us both." They stood frozen in the hallway, balanced on the edge of something that would change everything. Maya's pulse beat visibly in her throat. Cole could count every shallow breath she took. "If we do this," she whispered, "and it falls apart, Sophie, won't lose you. No matter what happens between us, you're part of her life now. I won't take that from either of you. You can't promise that. Watch me." The kiss happened slowly, a question asked and answered in increments. Cole leaned in, giving her time to retreat. Maya's hand came up to his chest, and for a second he thought she'd push him away. Instead, her fingers curled into his shirt, pulling him closer. When their lips met, it was gentle at first, careful testing, asking permission. Then Maya made a sound low in her throat, and something in both of them broke open. The kiss deepened 2 years of loneliness and 3 months of building tension, finally finding release. Cole's hands slid into her hair. Maya's arms wrapped around his neck. They kissed like drowning people finding air, desperate and grateful and terrified of the moment ending. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Cole pressed his forehead to hers. "Tell me you feel this too." "I feel it." Her voice shook. "God, I feel it. But Cole, I'm scared." "Me too. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe alone." They stood there in the dim hallway holding each other while Sophie slept beyond the cracked door, while the city stretched out below the penthouse windows, while everything they'd carefully built threatened to either solidify into something real or shatter completely. "We should talk about this," Maya said eventually. "Set boundaries. Figure out what this means for tomorrow." Cole kissed her again, soft and brief. "Tonight, just let it be what it is." "And what is it? A beginning, if you want it to be." Maya's smile was tremulous but real. "I want it to be." The next 3 weeks were a careful dance of new boundaries and old fears. They didn't tell Sophie, not yet, not until they knew if this fragile thing between them could survive reality. But everything changed in small ways. Hands held when Sophie wasn't looking. Stolen kisses in the kitchen before dawn. The way Maya started sitting closer to Cole on the couch during evening routines. Sophie noticed anyway because 5-year-olds were more observant than adults gave them credit for. "Are you and Maya boyfriend-girlfriend now?" Cole nearly choked on his coffee. Maya went very still beside him at the breakfast table. "Why would you ask that, baby?" "Because you smile at each other the way characters smile in movies before they kiss. And Maya's been happy. Like really happy, not just regular happy." Maya's face flushed pink. Cole looked at her, saw his own uncertainty reflected back. They hadn't planned this conversation, hadn't figured out what to say. "Would that bother you?" Maya asked carefully. "If your dad and I were more than friends?" Sophie considered this with the seriousness she gave important questions. "Would you still live here?" "Yes." "Would you still make pancakes on Saturdays?" "Yes." "Would you still read me stories at bedtime?" "Always." "Then it's okay." Sophie returned to her cereal like the conversation was settled. "Emma's mom has a boyfriend and he's nice. He takes them to the aquarium. Can we go to the aquarium?" Cole caught Maya's eye across the table. She was fighting a smile. "Sure, baby, we can go to the aquarium. This weekend, if Maya's free." Maya's smile won. "I'm free." They went that Saturday, the 3 of them bundled against late February cold, Sophie between them holding both their hands. The New England Aquarium was crowded with families, the giant ocean tank glowing in the center of the building. Sophie pressed her face against the glass, watching sea turtles glide past. "Did you know sea turtles can live to be like 100 years old?" She didn't wait for an answer. "And they come back to the same beach where they were born to lay eggs. Even if they swim around the whole ocean, they always come home." Cole felt Maya's hand tighten in his. He glanced at her, saw tears threatening. "That's pretty amazing," she managed. "Maya, are you crying?" "Happy tears, sweetheart. I just think it's beautiful that they find their way home." Sophie leaned against her. "This is your home now, with me and Daddy. You don't have to swim around the ocean anymore." Maya's composure crumbled. She knelt down, pulling Sophie into a fierce hug. "Thank you, baby. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me." Cole watched them, his throat tight. This was it. This was what he'd been missing. Not success or power or the respect of board members who measured worth in quarterly returns. This. A Saturday afternoon at the aquarium. His daughter's laughter echoing off glass walls. A woman who looked at them both like they'd hung the moon. His phone buzzed. Anderson. He ignored it. It buzzed again and again. You should check that, Maya said quietly, still holding Sophie. It might be important. Cole pulled out his phone, scanned the messages. His stomach dropped. The board wants to meet Monday. Final decision on the restructuring plan. What does that mean? It means they're going to decide if I keep my job or get replaced. He typed back a brief acknowledgement, pocketed the phone. But not today. Today we're looking at sea turtles. Sophie grabbed his hand, pulling him toward the next exhibit. Maya fell into step beside him. Are you worried? She asked under her breath. Terrified, but I meant what I said. Not today. They spent 3 hours in the aquarium. Sophie's joy was infectious, pulling them both into the present moment. By the time they headed home, the winter sun was setting early, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Sophie fell asleep in the car, exhausted from excitement. Cole carried her up to the penthouse while Maya unlocked the door. They got her into pajamas without fully waking her, tucked her into bed with her worn bare. In the hallway after Maya stopped Cole with a hand on his chest. Whatever happens Monday, we'll figure it out. What if they fire me? What if I lose the company? Then you build something else, something that doesn't require 60-hour weeks and constant sacrifice, something that lets you have Saturdays at the aquarium. That easy? I didn't say easy, I said possible. She rose on her toes, kissed him softly. You're not just a CEO, Cole. You're a father, a partner, a person. The company doesn't define you. It's all I've ever been. No, it's all you let yourself be. There's a difference. He pulled her closer, resting his chin on top of her head. She fit perfectly against him, like she'd been designed for this exact space. I don't want to lose this. Any of this. Then don't. Fight for it. But fight for the right reasons. What are the right reasons? Building a life that makes you happy instead of one that just looks successful. Being present for the people who love you. Choosing joy over obligation. She pulled back to look at him. You've spent 2 years punishing yourself for Lisa's death. Maybe it's time to forgive yourself and actually live. The words hit deep. Cole kissed her properly, pouring everything he couldn't say into the contact. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, he whispered against her lips. I love you. Maya went very still. Cole, you don't have to say it back. I just need you to know. Whatever happens Monday, whatever the board decides, I love you, you and Sophie. And that's what I'm fighting for now. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I love you too. I've been trying not to, trying to protect myself, but I do. I love you so much it scares me. Good scared or bad scared? Both. All of it. Everything. She laughed wetly. I'm a disaster. You're perfect. I'm really not. Perfect for me then. Perfect for us. They stood in the hallway holding each other while the city lights flickered on below and everything hung in balance. Monday would bring answers. Decisions, changes that might destroy what they'd built or solidify it into something permanent. But tonight they had this, each other. Sophie sleeping peacefully, a life that felt real for the first time in years. It was enough. Monday arrived cold and clear. Cole dressed in his best suit, the armor he wore for battles. Maya made him breakfast he couldn't eat, pressed a travel mug of coffee into his hands. Be honest. Be yourself. Let them see the man who chooses his daughter over late meetings, the man who rebuilt his life after loss. That man is worth following. What if they don't see it that way? Then they're idiots and you build something better. He kissed her at the door, long and thorough, like he was drawing strength from the contact. Sophie appeared in her pajamas, still sleepy. Daddy, are you leaving? Just for a few hours, baby. I'll be back for dinner. Promise? Promise. She hugged him tight. Over her head, Maya's eyes held his. Whatever happened, they were in this together. The boardroom felt different today. Less hostile, but no less tense. Anderson sat at the head of the table, other board members arranged around it. No Marcus Webb. Just the people who'd built this company alongside Cole, who'd trusted him with their investments and their faith. Thank you for coming, Cole. I know the last few weeks have been difficult. That's one word for it. Anderson shuffled papers. We've completed the audit. Webb's embezzlement totaled $2.7 million across 18 months. He's facing criminal charges. The money's been recovered minus legal fees. Good. We've also completed the performance review you requested. Your productivity has decreased as discussed. But, Anderson paused, your team's productivity has increased. Delegation has led to more distributed decision-making. Junior executives report feeling more empowered. Client satisfaction scores are actually up. Cole blinked. What? You've been trusting your people instead of micromanaging. Turns out they rise to the occasion when given the chance. Anderson smiled slightly. Who knew? So what does this mean? It means we want to restructure, but not the way Webb proposed. We want you to move to chairman of the board, promote your COO to CEO. You stay involved in major decisions, but step back from day-to-day operations. The offer hit like a physical force. Step back. Share power. Actually have a life outside these walls. Why? Because the company that valued constant presence over strategic thinking was headed for burnout across the board. You modeled something different. It's working. We want to formalize it. Anderson leaned forward. You built something incredible here, Cole, but you don't have to run it into the ground maintaining it. Let other people carry some weight. Go be with your daughter. Build the life you actually want. And if I say no, then you're an idiot and we force the restructure anyway. Anderson grinned. This isn't a punishment. It's a promotion. Chairman makes the same salary with half the hours. You still have final say on major decisions. You just don't have to attend every meeting or review every contract. You get to actually live. Cole looked around the table, saw nods of agreement, saw people who'd watched him destroy himself for 2 years and were offering him a way out. I accept. Good. We'll draft the formal agreement this week. Announce it next Monday. Give you time to transition. Anderson stood, extended his hand. Congratulations, Mr. Chairman. Try not to work yourself to death in your new role. Cole shook his hand, still processing. He'd come in expecting a battle. Instead, he'd been handed exactly what Maya had said he needed, a way to have both the company and a life. He drove home through lunch traffic, called Maya from the car. How did it go? Her voice was tight with anxiety. They promoted me to chairman. Half the hours, same pay, less direct oversight. Silence. Then, are you serious? Completely. I start transitioning next week. Maya's laugh was pure relief. Cole, that's amazing. That's perfect. It means I'll be home for dinner every night, home for bedtime, actually present instead of just residing in the same building. Sophie's going to lose her mind. What about you? You okay with me being around more? Are you kidding? I'm thrilled. We both are. Good. Because I love you, and I want to actually build a life with you instead of just fitting you into the margins of one that doesn't work. I love you too. Her voice caught. Get home safe. We'll celebrate. He made it home by 3 p.m. earlier than he'd been home on a weekday in years. Found Sophie and Maya in the living room doing some kind of art project with enough glitter to coat the entire floor. Daddy, Sophie scrambled up, trailing glitter. You're home. Did they fire you? Nope. They promoted me, which means I get to be home a lot more. Sophie's eyes went wide. Like for dinner every night. Every night. She launched herself at him, sticky glitter hands and all. Cole caught her, swung her around while she shrieked with laughter. Over her head he met Maya's eyes. She was crying, he realized. Happy tears that she didn't bother hiding. That night, after Sophie was asleep, Cole found Maya on the couch with her sketchbook. But she wasn't drawing, just sitting with a small jewelry box balanced on her knees. What's that? She, startled, nearly dropped it. Nothing. Just something I've been thinking about. Cole sat beside her. Can I see? Maya hesitated, then opened the box. Inside was a ring, simple, delicate, nothing expensive. The kind of ring someone bought with their first real paycheck from a job they loved. "I bought this 3 days after you hired me," she said quietly. "I was walking past a jewelry store and saw it in the window and I thought maybe someday I'd be the kind of person who deserved to wear something like this. Someone stable. Someone who had their life together. Someone worth keeping." "Maya, I'm not there yet. I'm still a mess. Still figuring out who I am outside of crisis mode. But being here with you and Sophie, I'm starting to believe maybe I could be. That maybe I'm not just temporary after all." Cole took the box from her hands, studied the ring. "How much did this cost?" $200. It was everything I had left after my first paycheck. I know it's not much, but—" He closed the box, set it aside, and pulled her into his lap. She came willingly, tucking her face against his neck. "You've always been worth keeping. From the moment you sang to Sophie, from before that even. You're not a mess. You're a person who survived impossible things and kept your capacity for love intact. That's not broken. That's extraordinary. You have to say that. You love me." "I say it because I love you. There's a difference." He tilted her face up to meet his eyes. "I'm not good at this, at relationships or expressing feelings or any of it. But I know that you make me want to be better. You make me want to show up. And I know that Sophie is happier and healthier and more herself because you're in her life. That's not temporary. That's forever if you want it." "I want it." The words came out fierce. "I want all of it. You and Sophie and this life we're building. I want Saturday aquarium trips and bedtime stories and coming home to people who are happy to see me. I want to matter to someone the way I matter to you. You do. You always will." They kissed slowly, thoroughly, pouring 2 years of loneliness and 3 months of building trust into the contact. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Maya rested her forehead against his. "What happens now?" "Now we live. We show up for each other. We take it one day at a time and trust that we're both choosing to stay. That easy. That hard. But worth it." 3 months later, on the first warm Saturday in May, they went back to the aquarium. Sophie wore a new sundress and ran ahead, excited to show them something she'd learned about jellyfish. Cole and Maya followed hand in hand, unhurried. The aquarium was crowded with spring tourists. Sophie pressed against the jellyfish tank, mesmerized by the pulsing lights and drifting creatures. Maya stood beside her, pointing out different species, explaining how they moved without brains or hearts, but survived anyway. Cole watched them and felt something settle in his chest. The board transition had gone smoothly. His new role gave him exactly what he needed: enough involvement to feel useful, enough distance to actually have a life. He made it home by 5:30 every day, had breakfast with Sophie every morning, spent evenings with Maya, sometimes talking, sometimes just existing in comfortable silence. It wasn't perfect. Maya still had nightmares about her mother. Sophie still had bad days where she missed Lisa with an intensity that broke all their hearts. Cole still occasionally fell into old patterns of overworking until Maya gently pulled him back. But they showed up for each other, every day, through the hard moments and the easy ones, building something that felt solid in a way nothing had felt solid since Lisa died. "Daddy, look." Sophie pointed at a massive jellyfish, its tentacles trailing behind like ribbons. "It's so pretty." "It is, baby. Can we get one for the apartment? Jellyfish need special tanks, but maybe we can get a fish tank. Would you like that?" Sophie's face lit up. "Really, can Maya help me pick the fish?" "Of course." Maya's hand found his squeezed gently. He looked at her, found her watching him with an expression he was learning to recognize, contentment mixed with wonder, like she still couldn't quite believe this was her life now. "What?" he murmured. "Nothing. Everything. Just thank you." "For what?" "For seeing me, for choosing me, for building this." Cole pulled her closer, kissed her temple. "Best decision I ever made." They stayed until closing, Sophie exhausting herself with questions and observations. On the drive home, she fell asleep in the back seat, her face peaceful in the dimming light. "She's happy," Maya said softly. Really genuinely happy. So am I. Yeah, yeah. Cole reached over, took her hand. I spent 2 years thinking happiness was gone forever, that the best I could hope for was functional. But you taught me something. What's that? That loss doesn't mean the end of joy, that you can honor what you had while still building something new, that love isn't a finite resource, it grows when you give it away. Maya's eyes were bright. That's beautiful. It's true. Lisa would have loved you, would have been grateful Sophie has you, would have kicked my ass for waiting 3 months to kiss you. You think... I know. He brought her hand to his lips, kissed her knuckles. She'd want me to be happy, to give Sophie a family, to stop punishing myself for something I couldn't control. And she'd want me to tell you that I'm going to ask you to marry me, eventually, when the time's right, when we're both ready. Maya's breath caught. Cole, not today, not tomorrow, but someday. Because I can't imagine my life without you in it. Because Sophie can't imagine it either. Because you're already family in every way that matters. I just want to make it official. Tears streamed down her face. I'm going to say yes, when you ask, just so you know. Good, then we're on the same page. They drove the rest of the way in comfortable silence. Sophie sleeping peacefully, the city spread out before them, glowing in the spring twilight. When they pulled into the parking garage, Maya leaned over and kissed him, soft and slow and full of promise. I love you. I love you too. Both of you. My whole family. They carried Sophie up together, got her into pajamas without waking her, fully tucked her in with her bear. In the hallway, after Cole pulled Maya close. Move into my room, officially. No more pretending you sleep in the guest suite. Sophie will notice. She already noticed. She asked me last week why you still have a room you never use. Maya laughed. What did you tell her? That grown-ups are weird and make things complicated when they should be simple. That if it was up to me, you'd have been sharing my room from day one. What did she say? That Emma's mom and her boyfriend share a room and it's normal and I should just ask you to move in already. Smart kid. Gets it from her dad. Cocky. Confident. There's a difference. He kissed her again, deeper this time. Move in with me. Let's stop pretending this is anything other than what it is, a family. Our family. Maya wrapped her arms around his neck. Okay. Yes. Let's do it. That night, Cole helped her move her few belongings from the guest suite to his room. It didn't take long. Maya still traveled light, still hadn't fully allowed herself to settle. But seeing her toothbrush next to his in the bathroom, her clothes in his closet, her sketchbook on the nightstand beside his work documents felt right in a way that made his chest ache. They lay in bed, after her head on his chest, his fingers tracing patterns on her shoulder. I used to think happiness was something you achieved, Cole said quietly. Something you built toward. A destination. But it's not. It's just this. Small moments strung together. Choosing to show up. Choosing to stay. That's very philosophical for midnight. I'm tired. I get philosophical when I'm tired. Maya laughed, the sound vibrating against his chest. I like it. Tell me more deep thoughts. Sophie's going to need therapy when she's older. We're probably screwing up in ways we can't see yet. Probably. But we're trying. That counts for something. It counts for everything. She lifted her head to look at him. We're going to be okay, aren't we? All three of us. Yeah, we're going to be better than okay. Promise. Promise, promise, like I really mean it. She smiled, recognizing Sophie's phrasing. Good enough for me. They fell asleep, tangled together, the city quiet beyond the windows. Sophie safe down the hall, a future spreading before them that finally felt possible instead of just survivable. When Cole woke the next morning to find Maya already awake, sketching in the early light, he knew he'd found it, the thing he'd been searching for without knowing it. Not success or redemption or escape from grief, just this, a partner who chose him daily, a daughter who was learning to be happy again, a life built not on achievement, but on presence. The snow that had fallen in December was long gone, replaced by spring flowers in window boxes and trees budding green. Winter had melted into something gentler, something full of promise. And for the first time since Lisa died, Cole could imagine a future that didn't hurt to think about. A future with Maya's laughter in it, Sophie's joy, quiet mornings and family dinners, and all the ordinary magic of showing up for the people you loved. It wasn't the ending he'd imagined when Maya first sang to Sophie in that emergency room. It was better, messier and more complicated and infinitely more real. It was everything.